Good morning. It is time to get this meeting of the San Angelo City Council started, and we welcome you here. It's good to see everyone. Let's start this morning with a prayer, and I'll ask Michael Pfeiffer of the Catholic Diocese to come forward, and if you would, please, sir, come start us in prayer, and then we'll have our pledge. Your own, sir. Good morning, sir. Same here, sir.
Let us pray. Kind, gracious, and loving God, our Father, as your people, as your creatures, we give you praise, worship, and glory and adoration, which is our main responsibility here on earth. We thank you for the countless blessings that you bestow upon us that we take so much for granted. And knowing that sometimes perhaps we've failed, we seek your mercy, your forgiveness, and the new direction of the Holy Spirit so that we can accomplish your will in all that we do. So we ask in the name of your Son that you would pour out the Spirit upon us today, especially upon our mayor, our council, all of our leaders. Fill them with wisdom, with light, inspiration. Guide them always with the spirit of truth and justice in all that they do. And Father, as we pray for blessings upon them, we pray for all the people of our beautiful community. Thank you for the blessings, and we ask renewed blessings, and especially help us to be conscious of our members, our citizens who are less fortunate. And especially we ask that you would bless the good efforts of the United Way as we honor this Sunday, praying for that special intention and the many, many people that they serve, especially the poor and the needy. And Father, you know we need rain. Send down upon us those heavenly showers. And we offer everything we do today in the name of your Savior, and ask that you fill us with your love and help us to share always that love with our neighbor. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. And now I'll ask Paris Connolly to come forward. Paris is 12 years old and the daughter of employee Stephen Connolly and the Irrigation Horticulture Supervisor in the Parks Operation Division. And Paris is a 7th grader at Lee Middle School. She's going to help us with the pledge this morning. You ready? Take off.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas.
honor
The Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. And now I am looking for Ricardo Cortijo. Are you in the crowd, sir? I have a proclamation to read to you. Or is there anyone that is here to accept this proclamation? I'll just go ahead and read it and hand it to you, and you can get it to him. What this is a proclamation, and it's joy to the city. It's a back-to-school bash, no dropout zone. And it says, proclamation, Joy to the City will host a back-to-school bash on Saturday, August 17, 2013 at the River Stage in San Angelo, Texas. And whereas Joy to the City's vision is to provide a safe place for the children and youth of San Angelo so that they can grow healthy and have a bright future, and to encourage our children to finish school and not end up in gangs and in a lifestyle of crime and extreme poverty. And whereas, in partnering with various organizations and local churches, Joy to the City's Back to School Bash will let our community's children and youth know that their lives, their future, and education is important to us, and we will be promoting San Angelo to be a no dropout zone. And whereas the purpose of these partnerships will provide a grassroots support for local schools by encouraging local members of the community to make a commitment to support education improvement throughout the year, and whereas at the Back to School Bash event, up to 1,500 children will receive backpacks and with their families will enjoy a day of games, inflatables, food, music, and lots of fun. Now therefore I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do proclaim the 17th day of August 2013 as Back to School Bash, No Dropout Zone, in San Angelo, Texas, and invite all caring individuals to join together to make their local schools better and to support this charitable effort. And you've already spoken about United Way. If you come forward, I'll read you a proclamation, sir. I'm sorry, did I get out of line? Let's do the United Day of Prayer since you're here. That's the one I had anyway. I had the wrong one. This is the United Day of Prayer. It's to be accepted by Michael Pfeiffer, the San Angelo Diocese, and the proclamation reads, whereas the United Way of the Concho Valley's mission is to increase the organized capacity of people to care for one another, and whereas the United Way of the Concho Valley has shown great initiative and enhanced the quality of life in the Concho Valley, and whereas the United Way of the Concho Valley works tirelessly to increase awareness of the needs of people in this community and strives to assist them through the services of its 17 member agencies that provide 17 programs. Now therefore I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby declare Sunday, August 11th, 2013 as the day of community prayer for the success of this year's United Way campaign in the Concho Valley, and urge all citizens to participate in this extraordinary humanitarian effort. Thank you, sir. You want to talk?
Well, thank you, good mayor and council members, for this proclamation. The past 20 years, I've asked the mayors to proclaim a day of prayer Sunday, to ask God's protection and care and blessing upon our United Way efforts. You mentioned the many agencies that benefit from this great effort, so we thank you very much. Encourage all of our citizens to take part in this wonderful united effort that involves all of us. I'm sure I speak for the United Way members when we say thank you and ask all people to pray. I learned something years ago in theology. We must work like everything depends on us, but pray like everything depends on God, because it does. So, God bless the United Way, and thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Let's take a picture.
Oh, a picture.
We got the man with the camera here. I do. I thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And now it's time for the other United Way proclamation, and I'll ask Patty Brightrider and Donna Brosh to come forward to accept this one. Good morning. How you been? Hi, Donna. This proclamation is to the United Way, and it reads, the United Way of the Concho Valley's mission is to increase the organized capacity of people to care for one another, and whereas the United Way of the Concho Valley believes that children hold a special place in our lives and that raising healthy, happy children is the greatest accomplishment any community can hope to achieve, and whereas the United Way of the Concho Valley invokes all of the citizens of San Angelo to commit to ensuring that every child grows up in a safe and a nurturing environment, inclusive of opportunity, love, and laughter. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby declare Saturday, August 10, 2013, as the United Way of the Concho Valley's Children's Day, and urge all citizens to participate in this celebration of children. And who would like to speak? Or both of you? There you go, ma'am.
We would like to thank the City Council for this proclamation. It means the world to us. It really does. We would also like to invite everyone and encourage everyone to come out to the River Stage this Saturday from 9 o'clock until noon and join us for our kickoff and for the Children's Talent Show. Thank you.
Donna, you want to talk?
I always want to talk.
Of course.
I just ask you, support the United Way at your workplaces this year and support the campaign. And do come out to the talent show. We're also going to have children's games, and it's all free of charge, again at the River Stage from 9 to noon on Saturday. Thank you.
Let's take, thank you, Donna. Let's take a picture. Come here, Patty. I get to take a picture with y'all. Thank you. For public comment. The council takes public comment on all items in the regular agenda. Public input on a regular agenda item will be taken at its appropriate discussion. Public input on an item not on the agenda or consent agenda may be identified and requested for consideration by the council at this time. The council may request an item to be placed on a future agenda or for a consent agenda to be moved to the regular agenda for public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like at this time to come forward and speak about anything that is not on our agenda? Come on here, Terry.
Plug this in.
This is not the time. This is on the agenda.
Okay, I'm just going to, well, let me introduce who I am at first. I'm Terry Campbell. Most of you know me. I'm a retired senior citizen. I'm a retired senior scientist. And I am a tax-paying citizen of San Angelo in District 1, where Rodney over here is my chairman. Now, I would like to just make a little short statement. San Angelo has a major shortage of water, but it's not due to the drought propaganda. Right now, we have 12.4% of our capacity on all of our reservoirs. And it's funny because we have had close to normal rainfall for the last year and a half, but yet we only have 16 months of water left. Now, after studying the West Texas rainfall since 1940 to present, we really should not have a shortage of water because we have had a gradual increase of rainfall, but we have a reduction in the inflow into our reservoirs. And now this is because of many reasons. One is, well, it's because of all of our farmers and agriculture people have become very efficient in their farming, so they're now terracing and stuff and retaining water and preventing it from running into our reservoirs. Along with, we've got salt cedar and mesquite that are sucking up water all over the place. Plus, we've got an increasing mandate of soil and water conservation programs and mandated stormwater management projects. Any one of these by themselves is not a big deal, but all of them together, that is the reason why we are now short on water. It's not because we're short on rain. Because if you go back for the last 40 years, we actually have a little more rain. It's been gradually increasing. If you take a 10-year sliding average, we've gradually increased. But what it says is our normal rainfall is not going to solve our problem. We must find water elsewhere. And if you'd like, I would like to speak on number 14, 15, 25, and 32 on the agenda when it comes up. And if I could have your permission, I've got it on PowerPoint so people can read it as I'm speaking. Thank you, and God bless this proceeding and the city of San Angelo. Thank you.
Terry. Anyone else care to speak to something that is not on the agenda? If you would come forward, state your name, and you've got 5 minutes, sir.
5 minutes. Good morning. My name is Bill Pritchard. Honored and privileged to be here today. I just want to express my thanks to everyone on the June, some of you probably remember on the June 18th meeting, the Rio Vista Park project was approved to be renamed for the Jaime Padron Memorial Park. At that meeting, Mr. Silvas said that I had spearheaded that, and that's somewhat correct. But that wouldn't have been possible without everyone's support here. And I just want to say thank you, first and foremost, to Mr. Silvas. Without his assistance, this clearly would not have been possible. Mr. Valenzuela was very supportive of this. Thank you for that. Mr. White, I spoke with him, there he is. Thank you for your support on that. And also to Matt Baldwin with San Angelo Police Department. He was very supportive and assisted me greatly in this project. I don't live here anymore. I'm assigned overseas due to my employment, so it's very difficult to see a project like this through when you're not in the country, much less in San Angelo. So everybody came together and did the right thing, and again, I appreciate that. I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pritchard. We appreciate that, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to speak to anything that is not on the agenda? This is your opportunity. If there's no one in the public, is there anyone on the council that has anything that they want to add or pull or say? Yes, ma'am.
Just want to give to our city manager and make a report on Port des Plaines annual board meeting that took place in Sonora recently, and the annual meeting's coming up in Amarillo, October 1st and 2nd. The Port des Plaines financial record was given. It is in good form, good shape, and we had a report from the Texas Freight Mobility Plan for Texas, and it was a good conversation. Dwayne, if you'll give that to him to have a copy of that board report in what I call the manager's boardroom.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Wardall.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to pull an item or two later on, but not until we get to it.
Okay.
I'll wait till we get to it.
Very well, sir. Any other council members have anything they need to pull or talk about or state, or this is your opportunity? If not, then it's time to consider the consent agenda if there are no problems with the consent agenda. And the consent agenda would be items, we'll say that number 2A on the consent agenda has been moved to the regular agenda, but it's moved to number 11. So we have the consent agenda, which will take us all the way through items 1 through 9, with the exception of 2A. If no one has a problem with the consent agenda, I will entertain a motion to accept it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I did have one quick question.
Okay.
On item 2B. I assume that was a budgeted item. We're talking about 900,000 plus. Wanted a clarification.
You want to pull that one and talk about it?
If you could briefly just tell me that it was a budgeted item.
Mr. Dixon, was that a budgeted item? Yes, sir. It was a budgeted item.
Okay, sir.
You
Thank
happy?
I'm happy.
If there be no other questions on the consent agenda, I will entertain a motion to accept it.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as is.
With the exception of 2A that has been moved to 11. Marty, did you second?
Yes, sir.
Johnny made the motion, Marty has seconded. Any council? Any public input on the consent? If not, I'll call for the vote. All of those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Consent agenda passes by a 7-0 vote. Which takes us to the the regular agenda starts with the executive, and of course we will take care of the executive at lunch, and I will read those at the time that we go into executive. So we are ready for public hearing and comment. This will be item number 10. This is a presentation on the Friends of Fairmont Master Plan and consideration of the approval of any matters related thereto. This will be by the Friends of the Fairmont board members and Parks and Recreation Director, Mr. Carl White.
Yes,
Your
sir.
own,
Good morning. We'll give some background for this item, but first I want to introduce three members who are present with the Fairmount Cemetery Board and the Friends of Fairmount. They would like to speak first. First of all, Mrs. Eva Horton, President of the Fairmount Cemetery Board. Next is Mrs. Cora McGowan, President of the Friends of Fairmount. And then Mrs. Ann West, Vice President of the Friends of Fairmount. They have asked to speak first, so I'll follow up with some more details after they speak.
Very well. And we welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Eva Horton. I'm the chairman of the Board of Directors of Fairmount Cemetery, the governing board. If I may, I'd like to take a few minutes just to tell you a little bit about the cemetery's history while we're here today, the many kinds of people who are buried there, which to us reflect the character of the city that we live in today. In 1892, 2 councilmen, just like you, actually they were called aldermen then, were instructed to find another place for a cemetery because the old cemetery was already closed in by houses, by residential area. These 2 gentlemen found 22 acres outside of town, which is now Avenue N, and that's where Fairmount Cemetery began. Sadly, one of the councilman's wives was the first person buried in that cemetery. She died March of 1893, Elise Bond. In 1897, when the city was unable to govern the cemetery any longer, an organization called the San Angelo Cemetery Association took over. Over 30 years later, in 1930, that same association deeded back to the city the cemetery grounds, as they called it, all real property, which at that point was now 52 acres, which is what it is today. Fairmount serves as the final resting place for a cross-section of San Angelo, of residents who have lived here. Cattlemen, oilmen, including the first driller of the Santa Rita number 1. Ira Yates of the famous Yates oil field is buried there. Architects, contractors, builders of our city, Oscar Ruffini is buried there. Benefactors of our town whose money now still supports the hospital and college scholarships. The Shannons are buried there. Robert and Nona Carr are buried there. Great cooks, great caterers, saloon keepers. Narcisse Stokes is buried there, the famous caterer. The statue in the middle of the cemetery, the tall, elegant gentleman, is Tom McCloskey, who owned the Arclight Saloon. Why not? The woman who thought Fort Concho should be preserved, Genevieve Carson, is buried there. Editors and publishers, Houston Hart and his wife, are buried on the west side of the cemetery. Men who went to Washington to press for Goodfellow, for our dams, our reservoirs, for highways, M.D. Bryant and his wife are buried on the west side. Other notables would include Robert Massey. As you know, the names I'm saying are all just household names here in San Angelo, and I think most of our newcomers don't realize that these were real people. John Nasworthy, Lake Nasworthy, College Hills, Bentwood are all built on the original Nasworthy Ranch. Jack Mathis, they were able to bring his body back from Europe when he was killed in World War II, and of course that's what our airport's named after. John Rust, who brought the telephone to San Angelo. Edith Grierson, who's the first child born at Fort Concho and died at age 13 of typhoid fever, is buried there. Jack Ingram, who is a veteran of the Battle of San Jacinto, is buried there. As a matter of fact, we have veterans from every single war buried at Fairmount Cemetery. Mort Mertz, James Millspaw, M.B. Pulliam, John Arden, Jonathan Miles, the streets and towns we drive through. Those have a reason for the name they are. A city exists because of its past, its present, and its future. Fairmount and Fort Concho represent the past, but we want to join the future. Fairmount needs some attention. I think it's past due. I looked in the records of our history, and first I thought the gazebo, which was built in 1911, was the last time Fairmount Cemetery got some serious attention, but actually it was 1984, and that's when we moved the board moved the original front gate, which was designed by the same person who designed the Cactus Hotel in Emmanuel Episcopal Church. The board had that moved to create a rear entrance. So that was 1984, which was the last time any serious improvement was made. That doesn't count a new parking lot across the street by the office. I know there are many, many other issues that you're dealing with and that are demanding your attention, but we, the board, the governing board of Fort Concho, hope you will give Fairmount Cemetery some thought. Addressing our request, especially the columbarium that they're going to talk about in a few minutes, will give us an opportunity to take a huge step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
Good morning. I am Cora McGowan, and I am president of the Friends of Fairmount. I appreciate you giving us the time to speak today. At this time, I would like to read a statement prepared by Garen Height, who is a member of Friends of Fairmount, who could not be here today due to a family illness. Garen is a registered architect specializing in the restoration of historic buildings for the past 40 years. In 1997, Mr. Height created and directed the Historic Texas Cemetery Designation Program at the Texas Historical Commission in Austin. Fairmount Cemetery received its historic designation in 1998. Mr. Height was involved in the restoration of over 1,500 historic cemeteries before retiring to San Angelo in 2009. Cemeteries are windows into the past, places that are sacred and significant. They are an important part of the individual and collective history of a community and should be treated with reverence, respect, and care. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Show me your cemeteries, and I will tell you what kind of people you have." A community that does not care for, protect, and preserve the city's dead is diminished as a place for the living. Fairmount is a unique historic outdoor resource for Tom Green County citizens as well as tourists searching for information about their ancestors or individuals with an interest in learning about the past. Tombstone tourists or cemetery enthusiasts are a growing category of people interested in visiting burial sites because of their cultural and historical value. People are realizing that cemeteries are not only historical parks, but are also archaeological lessons plus genealogical tours. No visit to Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, Massachusetts, the first garden-like landscape cemetery in the United States, provides their tourists with guides, maps, and audio tours. They highlight the history, people, plants, art, and wildlife found in the 175-acre cemetery. In 2011, over 200 million people traveled to experience Texas, spending $6.3 billion in the process. 70% of domestic visitation to Texas is for leisure. Visiting historical sites was a major tourist activity, and certainly cemeteries contributed to this figure, including Fairmount Cemetery. Continued efforts to preserve and enhance historic Fairmount Cemetery will certainly contribute to the increased visitation for future generations. In conclusion, and on behalf of Friends of Fairmount, I thank you for your time and consideration today. Our organization feels strongly that Fairmount Cemetery is a real treasure hidden in San Angelo and belongs to all of San Angelo. We ask that you recognize its value to our community, revere its history, and help us to continue to honor those buried there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGowan. Welcome, Ms. West.
Good morning. My name is Ann West, and I am here today representing Friends of Fairmount. More importantly, I am part of Friends of Fairmount because of Fairmount's history and importance to our community. Actually, that's why we're all here today. Friends of Fairmount was founded in 2005 because of a need, the need to preserve Fairmount Cemetery. However, we are here today because of an opportunity, that being to create something special for our community, an expanded role, while preserving an important piece of our history. Our mission at Friends of Fairmount is to enhance the beauty and the role of Fairmount Cemetery, its historic significance and strategic location within our community. It is a piece of history and lore of our city, a place of beauty, rest, and a place to learn who we were and who we are. So our mission also includes developing an educational role for Friends of Fairmount, for Fairmount Cemetery. You have seen the vision in the past of our master plan. You've heard of the history that is inextricably connected to our city. Let me give you just a little glimpse of the future by highlighting some of the things that are happening now. I hope you will see the benefit of this proposal. Recently, Duncan Knox, an honor student at ASU, engaged in a research project highlighting the lives and contributions of many of those buried at Fairmount Cemetery. We hope to expand our scholarship funding research in the future. In 2014, we are planning a walking historical tour in the cemetery with volunteers from several organizations in the community. It will offer insight into a day in the life of our founders. On November the 11th at 11 a.m., over 1,600 flags will fly in Fairmount in honor of those who sacrificed for our country, our annual Veterans Day celebration. Throughout the holiday season, Christmas wreaths will be placed on grave sites and throughout the cemetery, honoring those we have loved and lost. This year, we had 75 fifth graders from Fort Concho Elementary that were treated to a walking historical tour, stone rubbings, a scavenger hunt, and a picnic lunch in the cemetery. They also learned cemetery etiquette, symbolism, headstone symbolism, and became acquainted with recognizable names of those buried in Fairmount. Our Stones and Bones program is growing considerably. We have numerous requests from other schools to be active in that also. Large American flags line the entrance of Fairmount in observance of Memorial Day, and saving our trees, most important and dear to all of us. Luckily, we are armed with knowledge from our landscape inventory plan and our master plan so that we can replant Fairmount with suitable, more drought-resistant trees and plants that will maintain and enhance the beauty of Fairmount. We hope to make Fairmount a more active part in the lives of current generations, those who someday will stand here telling your history. This is the future of Fairmount that we see. We are committed to substantial fundraising for landscaping and visual enhancements within the cemetery, and we feel through that and the support of Phase 1 of our master plan, we can ensure the lifespan and the future of historic Fairmount Cemetery. And we hope you support this vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. West.
Moving forward, I promise to move fairly quickly, but I want to touch on a few items to bring us into context, particularly with a little bit of history of the master plan. As was mentioned, the Friends of Fairmount was formed in 2005. In 2007, the Friends of Fairmount held a charrette, which is basically bringing together folks who have different skills, design skills, landscape skills, some good vision to think about and brainstorm what the cemetery could be and look like in the future. That design charrette was presented to City Council in the summer of 2009. The City Council at that time directed staff and the Friends of Fairmount to go back and develop a master plan for the cemetery. At that time in 2009, we were in a recession. The city couldn't afford to help fund the master plan, so the Friends of Fairmount on their own raised funds through grants and donations to hire Komatsu architects to do the master plan. That master plan was completed in June of 2012, and we presented that to City Council in July of 2012, which that plan was adopted. So that brings us into context of why we're here today. I'd like to talk about just basically, generally, the main improvements that are proposed in the master plan, and in basically reverse order of kind of the timeline of when these improvements could be done. The first is a heritage center. Here it's listed as a new multi-use building, but at this point we're calling it a heritage center. It could be used for receptions, services, educational purposes. It's a rental facility where folks can come together and have different functions. Also, that would include the reconstruction of a maintenance facility. Our maintenance facility currently is located here. In order to build the Heritage Center, we would have to build a new maintenance facility to accommodate that space. That is a long-term vision for the cemetery in terms of that improvement. Other improvements that we think would enhance the cemetery are landscape improvements to the primary drives, north and south and east and west, including perhaps good drip irrigation for replanted trees, to grow new trees, new attractive trees, and sustain those trees into the future. That landscaping also includes highlighting some different areas like a memorial triangle at this location, which is near a good concentration of the veterans' burials, enhanced landscaping around the St. Francis statue, perhaps with a water-smart water feature. Also enhancing the existing gazebo, which is a central feature of the cemetery, perhaps with a grave locator so folks can come there to that center at the gazebo, find a grave that they're looking for, and go seek it at the cemetery. New restrooms. Currently, there's an old original storage shed at this location here. We see the need to have some restrooms at the cemetery to support services and folks who visit the cemetery. We currently don't have that. And then the two items that we would ask council to consider moving forward with sooner rather than later are the main entrance, reestablishing the main entrance, and funding the columbaria. We think the columbaria is really the most important item we need to move forward with. The columbarium is basically, and I'll show some closer pictures here in a second, but it's basically establishing 6 separate structures where folks who have cremations in urns could be placed in those niches. Each space is called a niche. With what we're proposing, we would close this section of this road. It's one of the nicest sections of the road. It's not needed for transportation throughout the cemetery. The central feature is a tree that's in the middle of the road. The first phase would add 2 columbarium, so that would give us the space, I think 432 niches. And then we could expand on that by adding 2 other sets of columbarium in that closed section of the road. Looking closer, the first 2 items, like I mentioned, is a new entrance and the columbarium. This is what the entrance looks like right now. It's not real attractive, and to be honest, it's not real safe. Folks, when they're exiting the cemetery, they have to approach basically the road to be able to see both directions to exit the cemetery. The new entrance is important for lots of different reasons. One, it would open up the sight lines, make it more safe to exit the cemetery, but it also makes a statement. It says, this is Fairmount Cemetery. The cemetery is important. It is a place that we revere and that is important to visit. And it basically lets folks know that Fairmount Cemetery is open for business. The columbarium we think is really significant for lots of reasons. Right now, we are missing out on a good business opportunity to be a place to have cremations in our cemetery. Right now, if folks want to have cremations placed in our cemetery, they have to utilize a burial space. We can put up to 4 urns into a burial space. It's not an efficient use of space at all, and really the general public can't participate in this unless they purchase a burial space. Building the columbarium creates those niches, which makes it more economical for us, and we could actually make money on the sale and the services of those cremations. Right now, the trend is increasing quite rapidly in terms of cremations. It's becoming more popular, more acceptable to be cremated. Up to a 50% increase since 1996. Right now, we are not taking advantage of this opportunity. Here's a closer look of the columbarium. Each structure would, as we've proposed here, would be 9 spaces wide and 4 tall, in 3 sections, double-sided, and then 6 structures. As you notice, we've got walkways around the columbarium, benches, seating for folks to visit. Here's a closer bird's eye view. This is the first set of the columbarium we would propose to construct. And then this is a look at what it would look like from the side. Now, these are our cost estimates to build all the different improvements that have been proposed in the master plan. This shows all of those improvements, but we want to focus in on the first two, which we think are most important to proceed with. First is the main entrance feature. Based on the cost, designs, contractors' markups, and just rounding it up, we estimate that the cost of the main feature to be $250,000. Now, the Friends of Fairmount have committed to helping to fundraise for some of these improvements. This would be one of the improvements that they could help fundraise for. We believe it'd be more difficult to fundraise for the columbarium because that is a revenue generating improvement. So they have committed to help raise funds. Primarily for this first phase, it would be for the main entrance. The columbarium, the first set of two, we estimated a cost about $316,000. So the first phase of the improvements, where our targeted budget for those expenses is about $600,000. That's our fundraising goal. Now, this shows you what some of the anticipated costs would be for these improvements, and it's important to note the revenue we could generate from the sale of the niches. The main entrance would have, it's not a revenue producer. It cost us a little bit in terms of replacement of light bulbs, replacement of landscape plants. The columbarium would also have a maintenance cost, again, light bulbs and some landscaping materials, but the revenue is significant. We're not currently in the business of selling niches, so we had to kind of do some good guesstimates on how many we thought we could sell each year. We believe we could sell an average of 24 niches a year. And we surveyed lots of different cities in our surrounding area. The price ranges for niches vary widely, but if we compare ourselves to, more importantly, the older, more traditional, more important cemeteries in the cities, and specifically our direct competition in San Angelo, we believe we could generate $2,500 on average per niche. That includes the sale of the space, the niche. It also includes the service, the opening and closing of the niche, as well as the sale of the plate that would go on the niche and its installation. We would net, on average, $2,500. So we estimate we would generate about $60,000 each year on average from the sale and services of those niches. So with that revenue, $60,000, we could do a lot of good at the cemetery. We could increase the water budget for the cemetery. We could put money aside for future improvements. So we think it is important to consider these two improvements. And I believe that is the basic part of the presentation.
Thank you, Carl.
Any
Appreciate
questions?
that. I like that columbarium. I'd like to see something done on that.
Carl, could you just flip back one slide, please?
Cost?
Just leave it there.
Carl, how much are the each spot going to sell for? You show on here that you're going to make $2,500, but how much is each spot going to sell for?
It really depends on the location. We could have different rates for the placement of those niches. And also, we would perhaps through policy allow for more than one to be in there. So if you had, it's really just an average, because if you put more than one in there, it would be a reduced cost for the second ones, but you're making more money on a single niche. So we averaged it out to, let's see, about $1,500 per space, and then there's a cost for the services as well as for profit on the sale of the plates that go on them.
I'm not sure if I understood that. Is $1,500 above this $2,500?
Well, $1,500 would be the average per space, per niche, and then we would also make revenue off the service of the opening and closing of the niche, and as well as from the plate that would go on the niche.
Okay.
So it's a three-part revenue: the sale of the niche, the service, and the plate that would go on the niche.
Okay.
And our closest competition in town, this is right in line with what they're charging on average.
They're
Actually,
charging $2,500
total for the niche, the service, and the plate.
But what I'm saying is, you're saying we're going to make your words were that we're going to net 2,500, but that's not net 2,500. If you're saying you're going to have to create a plate, you're going to have to pay someone to open and close it, and then you're going to have to service it.
That would be
So-
net. What I showed you, $2,500 would be the net.
Okay, so it's more than that. Each spot is going to sell.
Right, the $1,500 is potentially for purchasing it, but then you pay, just like now, you pay to open and close, then you pay to, so it's a three-part
Right.
fee, so you have to clump all that together, so
Okay.
each one, once it builds upon
It's
each
a
other.
good bit above 2,500 then.
The gross, yes.
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 I just showed you the net.
Okay.
And like I said, it's right in line with our main competition town, which is actually a little bit more than this, what we show.
Right.
Carl, yeah. Carl, if this council chooses to approve stage one of the Columbarium, have you focused in on any money that would be available for us to utilize for this project?
Do we have money to put towards this? Is that what you're
Have you
asking?
identified some money that could be used?
Not city money. The Friends of Fairmount have committed to raise some monies to help support this as well.
I'm talking about city money.
No, sir,
No.
I have not identified that.
Okay.
That's something that'll have to be looked at through the budget or capital items.
Johnny?
Yeah. Carl, I was just going to say that, it sounds like it's been many, many years that, have gone by before any kind of improvements have been made to this cemetery. I'm all in favor. I love the idea. If the folks want to contribute to the entry part of it, that's great. I just have, I'm trying to educate myself on, I'm looking at the draft budget for this coming year. But what does it mean when we're talking about $277,000 charges for service? What is that?
In terms of revenue?
Right. Well, in terms of revenues, yes.
If you're looking at the budget, that's probably revenue we generate from the services, the actual services that we facilitate and support.
So you average about $270 a year that come in.
Right, in terms of, revenue.
And how many personnel do we have out there? Because we're looking at almost $30,000 for personnel.
6 total.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's something that we have actually reduced in the past few years. If you recall, there were some combining that we did with the operations department, and then also in the office, we had a reduction of staff.
You did say that the Friends of Fairmount might be able to contribute money towards the entry part only, the main entrance. Do you have any idea how much?
I think
Ann or anybody?
it's really a question for them to answer, but
Okay.
I think they've talked about maybe up to $100,000.
Okay. Again, I'm all in favor on upgrades. I think this is a jewel for the city. I know that it is like going back in the dark ages when you drive up there and see the layout and all. I don't know if we're jumping the gun because we will be talking about capital improvement ideas later on, but I think I applaud the folks for bringing it up. And I think it's been long overdue, and I certainly have your support on what you're trying to do, and look forward to seeing if we can at least plant the seed, whether it's the main interest or the Columbarium. Now, we talking about, I saw on the slide it's one of 3. Is it 3 different ones, or is it 1, or is it 2?
Be a total of 6.
Okay, 6 of them, okay.
This is a bird's eye view, and we're
That's
looking at putting them in sets of 2. This would be the first set, and then these would be for future.
So the phase 1 would be the main entrance, and then one of these? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, yes.
1 or 2 of these?
One set of 2.
One set, okay.
And then as you sell those, I think the concept too was that, those future ones then could be funded potentially by dollars set aside from this initial startup that gets us going for the next ones to be
When is the
installed.
last time any type of upgrade was done out there? When is the? 1984. Wow.
With the exception of a small parking area.
Parking
by the
area, and they've
office.
done
It's
some
across the street.
irrigation improvements. And I think years ago, we did some over seal coating of the streets, but it's been very minor things.
Friends of Fairmount may want to speak to this, but I think they're ready to have some serious consideration of some improvements at the cemetery
Okay.
in the near future.
That's fair enough, yes.
Anyone else? Charlotte?
When they presented this in July, I believe, of last year, I was all for it then and in favor, and we're at the same point and position that we were last year. It needs to find the funds to fund it. So I would like to see us in our very first budget workshop, see if we could find some funds out of increased revenue from sales tax to start this phase one and move forward.
Do we need a motion or something to give, to tell you to make?
No, we don't need a motion.
Don't
That's
need a
something
motion.
we'll discuss in our,
Just
in our
approval.
capital equipment items.
Beth?
Any further council comment? Do we have comment from the public? Anyone wish to comment on the Fairmount? Then I suppose that this pretty well covers it. I appreciate the presentation, very professionally done, and I'm all for you here. I'd love to get these, especially this columbarium. I think it'll pay for itself. So I suppose then with the approval, we just need to talk about it in budget.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Johnny?
I just want to make sure, the entrance, the picture of that entrance, would it look pretty much like that? Is that,
This is conceptual. It doesn't have to look exactly like this.
but it's
and-
pretty close, it's what it would, man, I think that's fantastic, so. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you, Carl.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on. What time is it anyway? Anybody want to take a break? You want to keep rolling? Take a break? Let's take about 10.
10 after 10.
10:16, the meeting's called back to order. All right, we're ready now for number 11. And this is the item that was on the consent that was pulled forward. This is consideration of awarding bid ESO 313 for the 13 Seal Coat Project, Brandon Paving Company out of Victoria, in the amount of $1,710,000, authorizing city manager to execute a contract, related documents, substantially the attached form between the City of San Angelo and Brandon Paving Company. Mr. Wolf, would you walk us through this, please, sir?
Well, sir, thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council. This is to award a bid for our annual seal coat project. We do this every year. This year, we're actually doing more streets. It's over 900,000 square yards of asphalt. What it involves is spraying some oil or asphalt down the street and then laying a course of rock on top of that. It's a preventative maintenance project or whatever to keep the lifespan of the streets increased. This one, we had advertised for bid in May 30th and June 6th and received bids into June. Brandon Paving was the lowest bid. Their bid came in at $1.787 million. We have also taken out a portion of that, the pavement markings. That was all bid out together with pavement markings, but we have found that it's cheaper to do that in-house, so we're taking out pavement markings altogether. That still keeps them as the lowest bidder anyway. We've mailed bids out to several prospective bidders. One of them was local, Reese Albert of San Angelo, and one in Bernard, Mr. T's Asphalt Paving. Neither one of them submitted bids for this project. Brandon Paving is out of Victoria, and we recommend awarding the bid to them. They are also the company that did the seal coating last year, and we had great work from them, great working relationship, and expect nothing different this year too.
Any council consideration? Charlotte?
Have they done work for the city before, this company?
They did last year, and I think many, many years ago they did a long time ago. It's not the one that we had trouble with a couple of years ago.
Okay, thank you.
And that was about to be my question.
That was actually the next bidder, so.
Johnny?
Tim, and looking at the different areas of town, the green and the red, just for educational purposes, is that, what area are you doing?
The green streets were just the ones to differentiate those as ones that had striping on them, which we've pulled out of that all of the striping out, the temporary striping. You can imagine them all being red now.
So, a lot of these are residential or neighborhood streets.
Correct.
Are we not concentrating on the more traveled, the bigger avenues, the bigger
Last
boulevard?
year, we did primarily collector streets, Sunset, Jackson Street, streets like that were collector streets. This year, we focused on the residential side. There is Red Bluff Road,
Yeah, I
which
saw
is more
that.
of a collector, but Oxford may be a collector too. But other than that, it's mostly residential, yes, sir.
Marty?
How do we pick the streets that receive it?
A lot of it is just from personal experience, division experience, and then input from the public. As people call in and they complain about certain streets that need seal coating or need some type of maintenance, we go out and look at those, and we have a large spreadsheet of a prioritized list, if you will, of all the streets that need a certain type of maintenance. And these were on the list for seal coat. There were still quite a few more streets that we may be able to include with some of the contingency money in this, but it's right now it's more a subjective approach to it. We're looking at trying to implement a pavement evaluation program, whereas we'll have an objective assessment of all the streets in town, and so even if somebody wants a street because they drive on it every day, if it doesn't need maintenance, we won't be spending dollars on that. But right now, it's more or less a subjective approach to it.
I do want to mention that Clinton Bailey, of course, before he left, was looking at a 7-year process basically for all the streets to make sure that we evaluate to determine which ones needed seal coat, which ones needed asphalt overlay, which ones needed to be reconstructed. And that's something that we do want to implement in the coming years. At this point, when we look at seal coat projects, we want to make sure that we address those projects that are on the verge of perhaps needing extra help, if assistance as far as repairs, that we let them go too long. So right now, seal coat is just very preventative for those streets that really aren't in that bad of shape, but could be, and we need to address them immediately.
Right. We're also doing a mill and overlay project, which has already been awarded. We just have not started construction yet. That's doing a more heavy maintenance on certain streets too.
You know, one street that was brought to my attention after this came out was East Harris Avenue from Main to Bell, because a lot of the emergency personnel use that road to cut across town, and it is rough. So
Okay.
it not being on the list is kind of, disheartening, but it is what it is. But certainly keep in mind areas
we
such
can
as
definitely do
that our own folks use, to go and help other folks. So.
And we do have some contingency money in this award too, that if we find other streets along the way that we need to, we can add them as necessary.
And I've gotten calls after calls about Bell Street, of course. It's always
Right.
there. And, when they talk about folks from out of town even making comments about that road, it doesn't make us look good. So.
From what I understand, Bell Street is on the capital improvements project
Right.
list, so it's up for capital money.
Well, keep in mind on the contingency on East Harris
Okay.
from Main to Bell Street. So.
Will do.
Mr. Silvas,
Yes, sir.
the seal coat process won't actually smooth anything out. It's more of a preventative measure to keep water and moisture from penetrating the ground and the substructure. So it really won't do anything to help smooth anything out. And I believe East Harris was actually seal coated about 3 or 4 years ago. So it's actually got probably a better seal on it right now than most of the roads in town. So the seal coat process won't make anything smoother. So I just wanted to bring that
So
to
you're
your
just sealing the
attention.
cracks on the roads is what that is?
It's basically just, instead of us crack sealing in an individual crack,
Right.
we're actually coming over and doing the entire roadway at once. So it's
then-
more of a sealing process, not a smoothing
So is
process.
gravel involved?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other council? Do we have comments from the public on this? Did you, Terry? Okay. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve it.
Okay. Do I have a second? Don? Okay, we've got a motion and we've got a second, and we've had discussion. So all of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passes. That's a 7-0 vote. That takes care of our seal coating. Let's go on now to Mr. Silvas's request. This is number 12. This is discussion of residential water consumption on number of accounts using more than 50,000 gallons a month. And Mr. Dixon, you have the floor, sir.
All right, let me find my presentation.
Mr. Mayor, while
Yes,
Ricky
sir.
does it, let me just preface by saying
Okay,
that
Johnny.
I know this was brought to my attention a number of months ago, and I'm glad we put it off from the last time, because now we're in even more dire straits. So it's pretty much to educate not only the public but ourselves as to what usage is happening out there, and there's a concern, whether some folks are taking advantage of the situation, and I understand that they're trying to keep their properties looking the way they're looking, but just to get a bigger picture of what truly is, what type of conservation mode are we in, or are we not in?
Which one of these buttons? So, we got the technical part out of the way anyway, so we're good to go now. I wanted to, as requested by Mr. Silvers, I have some information, went back through all of 2012 and through June of 2013, where we're at right now on this, and this is just a combined residential breakdown of the information request of 50,000 gallons a month or more. So we're just going to start through these slides and kind of go through these pretty quick. Won't take a whole lot of your time. It's important to know as we go through these, January 2012, this is information, we were in drought level 1. This is broke down 51 to 60 and on up through 91 to 100 and over 101,000 gallons a month. These are just the customer count that associated with these volumes. So I'm going to go through these pretty quick. So if somebody has a question, stop me and we'll go from there. January, February, wintertime, you don't expect too much. We're still in drought level 1. In the March, it picks up some, but not anything real out of the ordinary, I don't think. April's, May, it's the same thing. We're still in drought level 1. June of 2012, you start getting in the summer, you see more usage. These number of accounts may look alarming, but I have some more information that we'll get to a little bit later on in the presentation. July 2012, now we're into drought level 2. Not a lot of change, going from drought level to drought level. August is still up, and it starts going back down. You get into September and start getting back in the winter months. And the one I want to look at is the total of 2012. When you get to 2012, you look at everything. 51 to 6,000, you got 561 customers that used that much on up through 61 to 73, 24. A lot of that information, when you look at kind of what that means overall in 2012, you think that's people are taking advantage of the system. But if you look at it in 2012, those people, those 143 customers used above 101,000 gallons of water. That's 0.04% of our customer count. It's a very minute number of people. In all of 2012, from 0 to 20,000, we have about 96% of the residential population. That's the amount of water they use from 0 to 20,000. Everything above that is in single-digit percentage and stuff like that. You get the same thing when you get to 2013. We're still in. Let me get caught up here. We're back to drought level 1 in this. January and February, we stay in drought level 1 till we get to June. Is when we implement. It's going on the July bills. Is when the billing started. And it's even more when you get into the amount of water that people are using. Our customers are doing everything that we've asked them to do as far as conservation goes. We couldn't be more pleased with that. They are actually doing their part. Yeah, we have some of these that are more than that, that could help us. But when you look at 2013, you look at the June totals, it's even more. You know, we're up into the 98% range from people from 0 to to 20,000. You know, that 101,000 and above for June is 0.01% of the customer count. So I'm real proud of the consumers of what they're doing for us in our trying to conserve our water. Yeah, it's hurting revenues, but we still have to have something to drink when this is all over with. So that's kind of all I have on this part of the presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer that. Johnny, I don't know if that kind of got what you were after.
Ricky, it does, and I was hoping to see low numbers like that, and sure enough, it's there. What about folks, are we ticketing folks are there any folks who are watering outside our time zones that we're not allowed to water? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, Johnny. Code enforcement takes care of that, and I'm
Right.
sure there is. I mean, I see it. Everybody sees it. You know, that goes on, that happens. So I'm quite sure that there's some people that are still stretching the ordinance, and, you know, there's a lot of homes and a lot of area for them guys to cover. So, you know,
Yeah.
we're doing the best we can.
And I want to tell you that code enforcement has been addressing those type of issues, overwatering, water 150 feet down the off the curb. All those issues have been addressed, and people are calling in and reporting those situations. Of course, we send code enforcement out there, and they have been doing their job. And they've told me that more so than any time in the past, they're doing more of that this year. You know, so there's a lot of people really monitoring and even watching the neighbors, making sure that they're doing what's right.
Everybody's reporting everybody, so.
So surely we're seeing revenues go up as far as some of these 50,000 plus gallon
No.
users.
Revenues are still going down.
But aren't they paying a certain surcharge?
Yes, they're paying a surcharge for the water that they use. I mean, it's broke down on that tiered
Right.
deal, so, yeah.
So that-
If they use it, they're gonna pay for it.
There'd have to be an increase there, is what I'm saying. If they're going past the 25,000 or whatever tier level is out there, there's bound to be some kind of increase in revenue.
There is, but it's such a small number
Is it?
of people that everybody else is doing, going above and beyond, so
Okay.
it's affecting revenue.
Fair enough.
So,
Any other comment from council? Comment from the public? This is just a discussion item, but if anyone wants to weigh in on this, this is your opportunity. Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Let's move on to item number 13. This is discussion and possible action on awarding bid WU 0613 for the 213 water line improvement contract number 1 to one of the following companies based on bids received from Darnell Construction, LLC, in the amount of $1,964,955.69. Housley Communications in San Angelo in the amount of $1,399,276.40, and QRO Mex Construction Company out of Granite Shoals, Texas, in the amount of $1,344,648, and authorizing the city manager to execute said contract in substantially the attached form and any related documents. Mr. Dixon, and I believe this is one that we have brought back.
that's
So-
correct. We are bringing this back for y'all's discussion and action that y'all choose to do this. We are still recommending accepting the low bid from QRO Mex Construction in the amount of $1,344,648, part of the capital improvement program, and is funded as such. It's approximately 13,369 feet of cast iron mains will be replaced under the contract. So that's kind of where we're at.
And I believe the discussion we had last time is that we wanted a local company, and there was a problem. There's not enough variance, or what was the deal there, Chief?
Had to be within 3% of the actual, when we start looking at going with a local, there are certain criteria that has to be met, and that's to be within 3% of the lowest bidder. And this one is actually above that percentage, which is actually at, I believe, at 4%, a little bit higher than that.
Yes. I was the one that brought that up, and, you know, I still think if there's any way that we can can keep $1.3 million plus in San Angelo that it's not going to do anything but help all of us. I'd like to make a motion to kick all these out and have them rebid.
And you can definitely do that.
We
this
have that
year.
authority.
Yes.
Can we require that they have an office here? I mean, it's, when someone is taking this amount of money out of San Angelo, it would be nice that they have an office here that at least we could contact them if there was a problem.
Excuse me, Mayor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. I did a legal opinion to City Council through the city manager that talked about the requirements under the competitive bidding process. And actually, the major issue is the amount of the contract, which doesn't allow us to afford local preference under the competitive bidding statute. Roger Banks can certainly address an alternate bidding type of scenario which would allow local factors to be considered. And so my recommendation in my legal opinion was would be to withdraw the bids if indeed you wish to go to an alternate method which would allow local factors to be considered.
Mr. Banks?
Yes, sir. There is an alternate method that has basically been changed in the last legislative session that would allow a competitive seal proposal process for construction projects over $100,000. That's a little different than what we're accustomed to. We're accustomed to looking at a low bid and the validity of the company and their references and their quality of work. So the competitive seal process is almost identical for public works as what we used for the BRC when we did the remodeling there. We are allowed to set different criteria for the selection, including price and other relevant factors for the project, which could be their experience in working in San Angelo. As far as them actually having a business in San Angelo, I would discourage that part, but you could weight some of the criteria so that we could select contractors that have done previous work in our city. So that's a different process that would be new to us on the public works side of the house. We've never used it for that, but it is an option that we have. A matter of fact, now with the last change, there's like 7 different options depending on the type of the project. So you kind of have to look at the project and which ones we think would fit. Traditionally, we've used the lowest responsible bidder approach, and we can certainly make that change to do that. It is a longer process because it goes to a selection committee, and you have to ask for a lot of documents to evaluate the bids, the company, and all that kind of stuff. So all those, it is a longer process. So that is one, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure the project managers were concerned, that's not necessarily a benefit to the project if it takes us longer to get it to you for award. The other downside of it might be that if you're looking at only folks that have done work in our community, you're dealing with only contractors that you may have dealt with in the past. You're not bringing in newer contractors that might be hungry for our work. So that's kind of the pros and the cons. As a purchasing manager, I like wide open competition and save as many dollars as we can, but that's certainly your prerogative. If you'd like to see us rebid this project under that alternate method, we can certainly give it a try and see how we come out.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. We do have a motion on the floor that we do away with these contracts and go out and rebid. Was that your motion? Is there a second on this anywhere? I'll second. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second that we throw these bids out and that we go back and start over again.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If I might, I'd just like to add that a lot of times I've seen this happen in the past that, you throw out bids and you go back and this may be the best bid that you're going to get, so that's always a possibility. I think when you look at also, I'm not going to say restricting the local bidders, but I think you're limiting your ability to get competitive bids for the city and citizens of San Angelo. So that's my concern also. I just wanted y'all to know that.
Well, I can see both sides of it.
Ricky, excuse me, Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Ricky, on the approximate almost 14,000 feet of cast iron mains being replaced, where is that going to put us in as far as completely renovating all the water lines? Where would that have
years and years and years and years down the road? I don't have that information available right now, Johnny, but there is still miles and miles and miles of cast iron mains in town. We deal with those daily, And I'll be glad to provide you that information, but I want to say 30-something thousand feet.
Wow.
Kind of is what comes back to my poor little brain. But there's a bunch. It won't get us anywhere close.
Okay.
Any other? Marty?
Well, I would just like to go on record as saying I'm very much in support of keeping everything we can local, but since the project's bid, it's to me, it would be pretty hard to rebid it because the numbers have been made public now. I just don't see how you can do it and come out with a fair or equitable bid to everyone now. So.
Anyone else? Charlotte?
I, too, would like to keep the business in San Angelo, certainly this amount of money in San Angelo for us. However, when you put something out for bid in good faith and you have people who submit a bid, and there's work to preparing a bid, and you have folks that submit a bid and you're just going to throw them out, that, to me, we take a risk in getting people to even want to work with us or do bids for us if we're going to treat them in that manner.
And I do want to add also, we were fortunate this time around. Actually, when we started looking at the next closest bidder, was about 4% off. Again, there's sometimes bids are just they vary. I mean, you could have had it about $600,000 off of the next lowest, and that's just a risk that we do run when we get away from actually the competitive bid process and focus more on the locals, which I support 100%. But we also have to be really cautious that we may lose out in the future of some of those better deals also, better bids.
It might be that we could look at that process that Roger described for future bids and award this one as submitted. Just an option.
I agree with that.
Anyone else? Is there any input from the public on this? We'll take public comment at this time.
I've got a comment.
Yes, sir.
Are we turning this down? Are we going to look at maybe taking new bids, but are we looking at another bid coming in, say, $1 less than the lowest? Are we going to look for that, or is it going to, do we stand a chance of it being over at 1.9 million, or what is the idea there is what I'm trying to get?
There is a possibility of that, where the amount actually comes in higher than the any of the bids that we currently received. If we rebid, if we turn down these bids at this point and we rebid, we could set the criteria as far as what we're looking for. But again, we always run that risk that it could come in higher than what we've seen at this point.
I'm kind of leaning towards Marty, because he's definitely right now that even competition out there, Don, now knows numbers. That's where I'm kind of iffy about.
Well, by the same token, they could come in lower because those are out also. And, I think with the approach that Roger was talking about as far as going through and having some different criteria on this thing, it could help, and if it comes back the same way, it's the same way, and our local bidder didn't get the price right. But I just, like I said before, I just hate to see us send $1.3 million outside of San Angelo if there's any way that we can legally and logically keep it in San Angelo.
The motion has been made and seconded that we kick all three of these bids out and start all over again. So that will be the vote. So if you are interested in kicking these bids out and starting over again, say aye.
Aye.
Hold up, let's raise some hands. We have two. Then those that are not willing to kick these bids, say nay. Nay.
Nay.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against 2, so it is nay. Now I need a second motion to approve this if someone so chooses.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a
Move to
second.
approve.
Wait, which one? I'm sorry, we need
QRO Max
QRO Max.
Construction.
Yes.
For
The low bidder.
$1,344,648.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second to approve QRO Max $1,344,648. Any more discussion? Any public discussion? All of those in favor of awarding the bid to QRO Max, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay. So we have 2 nays and 5, or
Yay.
5 ayes and 2 nays. So it does pass. QRMX will have the award. You know, we're now to number 14, which is the Hickory Well Field expansion. I wonder if possibly we should not do 15 first and see where we come up with that, because if 15, the outcome of 15 could affect the outcome of 14. So if, does the council agree that maybe we ought to do 15 first? Does anybody care? Yes, sir.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I plan to make a motion. Excuse me, I plan to make a motion to pull 14 from this agenda on the basis that it's premature. And so I don't know if that makes any difference to anybody, but.
Give me direction. You want to go 15 first?
I'm fine with it.
Marty?
Yes, 15.
There's 4. Let's go with 15 first, and then dependent upon what happens in 15, we can either pull 14 or go ahead with 14 at that time. So let's go with number 15. This is discussion and possible action on the location of the groundwater treatment facility for the Hickory Water Supply Project, and Councilmember Farmer has requested this be placed back on the agenda because we voted last meeting that it would be put on the at the water plant as planned. So it's up to you, ma'am.
Well, where the discrepancy is as planned, I maintain that the location was never approved or voted on. It was pulled for discussion several times. So there's 2, I've gone back and looked, there's 2 meetings where it was on the agenda in the last 4 years. And what was recommended, there were 2 different locations that could be done, and there were some of us that were opposed to having it in town. What I have asked, because I'm unclear, I do not believe that it was ever presented by the tapes that I have reviewed and the minutes that I have reviewed. The motion did not include the location. The motion was minus the location. And I just want to get it clear in there is if that motion is general that was made and covers everything that was in that packet when there were 2 locations that were discussed and talked about. But that's what's unclear to me. It has nothing to do with my wanting to slow down the project or stop the project. I know we need water. But if we had the option there in the locations, that's what I wanted to look at and talk about. And also that, as was directed at last meeting, it was stated that I'm the one who made the motion to put it there. And I've gone back and looked at all of the records, and I can assure you I did not make the motion, and I did not second the motion that was made, but it wasn't inclusive of the location of the plant. It had everything else, but the motion that was stated did not include the location of the plant. Now, what I've asked Mr. Dixon to do, ask him what window he has while he can still get out there and get this done, and hopefully we'll have water. What I've asked him to do is if he could come up with approximately what it would cost to make it self-contained. If you go back and you look at the Carrillo report, the folks in Farmington, Missouri, who have 12 of these wells, their units are self-contained, meaning their need of the sewer waters is built right in one location. I wanted to put it in one location just outside the loop to have it self-contained, the sewer for the water that is needed for the radioactive material. Therefore, we would not bring radioactive hot water across the loop and into the city limits. And in looking at what they do in Farmington, Missouri, they have it self-contained. They have a little mini sewer plant right there at each well. And I'm not an engineer, and I don't understand this, but I've asked Mr. Dixon if he could take some time to come up with some numbers as to possibly what it would cost to self-contain.
And I have talked to our engineers about this, and I'm not sure what all the constituents that Farmington, Missouri had in their wastewater. I mean, the main thing that we need sewer for is the disposal of the iron, backwash off the iron filters. So that's the issue. I've talked to them. They don't feel like a package plant, so to speak. We relocated it outside of the city limits would take care of that situation. We'd still have to pump it to the wastewater treatment plant on that end. Now, there's several things that we get into here when we talk about relocating this plant. I'm not going to say it's not possible. I'm just going to say there's going to be a tremendous delay in what's going on. Some of the things that we came up with when looking at just on the deal of outside the loop, it's not that far, and it's still, on the site where the transmission main would be, we still have land acquisitions, easement survey, geotechnical investigations, all the environmental. Right now, we're bringing that water from the Hickory, from the ground storage tank, just this side of Eden by gravity. And if we put a plant in line before it gets to town, we're going to break the head on that system. And then we're going to have to redevelop that to pump it the rest of the way into town. So we're going to have another ground storage tank, another pumping facility to take care of that. We've got to pump the wastewater off the filters to the sewer plant from somewhere the loop location. That's about 4.5 miles. We didn't have time and no exact location to get specific with dollar amounts, and I know there's going to be dollar amounts associated with this. But of all the things that we come up with in the scheduling and redoing and some redesign, best we can come up with is 2.5 years delay on this project if we move it. And I don't think that's site specific to outside the loop or move it back to the well field. Mayor Morrison has asked, can we move it out the wastewater plant? We don't have to pump it out there. Well, we don't have to pump the sewer out there. It's out there, but now we got to pump the water out there coming from the 30, then pump it back to town again. So at this point in the game, we're way too far down the road. I can assure you that we're on such a tight time frame right now with a little under 16 months of water that if everything goes perfect, I had a couple of months window to get this on and get water to the city. Any delays in this project, the drought persists, we're going to run out of water. I don't know any other way to put it. That's where we're at. If we don't have the treatment plant, we don't have the additional wells, we can't complete this on time. The citizens of San Angelo are going to run out of water. Yeah, there's risk associated with this project. I think those risks were known from the very beginning when the Water Advisory Board and the city staff and everybody started looking at options for long-term water. Back in 2008, the city council presentation after the advice or at the advice of the Water Advisory Board in 2008, we had looked and drilled wells for looking for salt water out west of town. There's some out there. The sands are so tight that the development of those wells for municipal production, it's not adequate. You can't produce enough water. The Water Advisory Board in 2008 said, we highly recommend that we develop the Hickory as our long-term water supply source in 2008. During that presentation, they told everybody the radium levels in this water are between 35 and 50 picocuries per liter. I mean, those risks were known. We talk about the location of the groundwater treatment plant, of where it's at and how it got there. I'm not blaming anybody or pointing fingers or whatever, but that decision, although, yes, you're right, I can't find it either, Ms. Former.
I've got it.
I've got it here also. It's
All
on
those
page
in favor
11.
of locating a plant in town say aye. I can't find that anywhere.
That's
But
all
there was
I'm
enough
saying.
decisions made back then that I think the intent was clear.
Okay, what I'm saying is in the presentation that was given to us, it suggests that there are 2 sites, 2 locations. And depending on whether we went with the ion exchange or the reverse osmosis, all of that was given to us. And on page 11, it says 2 locations are considered for the groundwater treatment plant, the Hickory well site or the City of San Angelo water treatment plant. Those were the 2 locations that were given. Several factors should be considered when evaluating the locations of the GWTF, and the decision should be based on what is best for the city of San Angelo. My argument has been is in the motion on that date, the motion to approve the reverse osmosis test process as an alternative to the single-use ion exchange process. A motion was made by Councilman Alexander and seconded by Mr. Silvas, and the motion carried 6-1. There was no mention in the motion period about which location we were going to take, since two were presented.
That's correct.
That's what I want to get straight. I'm not trying to sabotage, slow anything down.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get the records to reflect what actually happened, and that is what actually happened. And we need to get it in the records where we decide to go. That's my point.
Okay. And I agree that was, the vote was never taken officially on where it goes. But same presentation, you know, our engineers say we recommend the groundwater treatment place to be located at the surface water treatment plant. Had the pros and the cons of an operation cost, capital, chemical, personnel, all of those things in that same presentation. It was on August 2nd, I believe it was.
Yes, and my point being the engineers recommended it, the Advisory Water Board recommended it. Well, they're not elected as we are.
I understand.
And if the record needs to be reflect correctly what the council wanted out of that, and it hasn't been.
Okay.
Okay?
Ricky?
Very good. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. I understand that the treatment facility can't be moved. We don't want to close the gate after the cow's out. And from what I understand is WRT in Missouri, they actually treat the radium, take the radium out at each wellhead versus one large facility like we're shooting for.
Okay.
Is there any way that we can use it that way, and so the treatment of the radium is done before it ever enters the main pipeline coming to San Angelo, and then we leave the iron portion of it, like you're talking about, the treatment of that where it is?
No. We need to take the iron out prior to the radium treatment. The iron will foul the media in the radium treatment process. So we can't take the radium out and deal with iron when we get to town.
Okay.
We need to take the iron out first and then deal with the radium.
Okay.
That's correct. Okay. Sorry.
So I guess the treatment that they have in Missouri, they probably don't have the iron to deal with.
They may not. I'm not familiar with their constituents in their water.
Okay.
I know they're dealing with radium, and so are a lot of other places. I mean, WRT has lots of these options out there.
I would like to add, Charlotte read page 11 of the presentation that was made to us, but on page 12, it said the results of the groundwater treatment facility location evaluation based on the following factors: capital cost, O&M cost, operational efficiency, treatment options. We recommend that the groundwater treatment plant be located at the San Angelo Water Treatment Plant. That was the recommendation. That was the motion that was made, that we go with the recommendation. That was what was voted on, and it was a 6-1 vote because I'm the one that voted against it. I'm the one that brought it up because I wanted it at the well field, and I was knocked down by a 6-1 vote. And I accept that because we work on a 4-vote majority. I didn't want it in San Angelo, and I tried to get it somewhere else. But Johnny, I thought you went with me on one of those votes.
You're just refreshing my memory. I think you were the sole one against it.
But I was the only one that was against putting it on the river, and all 6 members of this council voted to put it on the river just exactly as it was recommended by our facility. That's on page 12 of a presentation that was made that every one of us watched, and it's too late to back up.
It was the previous council that voted.
A previous council,
I want
but
to
it
make
was
that real clear.
It was a majority council vote of the then sitting council, and we've been dealing with this since 2008.
You're exactly right.
And we've got $100 million worth of pipeline in the ground that if we don't build a treatment facility, that is $100 million we have thrown away.
Mr. Morrison, respectfully, I am not disagreeing or saying that we should move it. That's not what the newspaper is, not what I said.
That's what this item says. It says action on the location of the groundwater treatment. That's what the motion says.
But the motion was to approve the reverse osmosis test as an alternate to single-use ion exchange process. It doesn't specifically mention. Today, we could simply, someone could make a motion that it stayed at the water treatment plant, and that covers my objection.
Well, I could read what you said in that meeting, but I'm not going to because it would serve no purpose. But I've got your exact words of what you said in that meeting. I'm not going to read it. But we approved this by a 6-1 vote. We did it in 2012. The decision is made, the trigger has been pulled, and there's no way to put the bullet back in the gun. That's my opinion.
Could I ask legal counsel if motions that we make, should they be specific to the subject?
Right, they should be as presented, and I'm looking at the minutes from the August 2nd meeting, if relevant, that, let me just read that to you, and it was on the process.
While you're
as
reading, I will just say
presented.
that the break, when we
Yes.
took a break, that is when the discussion that totally
Single
against
use.
it, but we could move forward and decide on the location at a later date, and we never got back to it. I'm just trying to clean up the record. And I don't want,
The statement that's in a motion, is that council intends to pass? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking the motion that was made, it was not
Mhm.
specific to the location, since two were presented, and council needed to make the decision. There's nothing in the motion that says that the water treatment location was decided or voted on. I'm not advocating at this date to move it, I just want it straight. I didn't make the motion, I didn't second the
It
motion.
was presented.
And if any of you read Sunday's paper, I got beat up for doing it, and I didn't do that. I'm trying to get the record straight that the location was not even in the motion.
The recommendation was in the presentation, which said that we recommend that the GWTF be located at the treatment plant. That was the recommendation in the background materials. You're correct, it's not in the motion.
And I do, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I do remember the vote now. I did second the motion, and I remember the reason you voted against it was because specifically of the location.
Yes, sir.
Now, even though it's not in the wording, I agree with you. I agree with both of you. It wasn't specific, but I think in the conversation at the moment, on August 2nd, it was to place it there. It just happens it's not in the minutes specifically, but that is the main reason that Mr. Morrison voted against it. It was a 6-1 vote, was because in the conversation, we talked location. It's not specific in the wording, but that's exactly what happened. And you're right, Ms. Farmer. It's not. It doesn't say that.
Well, and the reason being is because of the erroneous accusation. I have received tons of calls from several constituents of mine and in other locations that I had been talking, campaigned, voting against the location, but you did vote for it. You did make the motion. No, I didn't make the motion. But yes, I voted for it, and in my mind, because we were going to discuss the location at a later date, and it wasn't specific. All I'm asking is that the record be corrected.
Set straight.
And set straight. If this council wants to say, make a motion today and put the location as Mr. Morrison feels that it was intended, I don't have a problem with that.
Mr. Mayor, is there really a need to make a motion on this? This
We
is
did
a
it
done
last-
deal. I mean,
Yeah, we
it's,
did it last meeting.
Let's just-
The motion was made last meeting that we would put it at the water treatment plant, and it was voted on, and it took a 5-2 majority to put it there. It's already been done.
no, none of us like this, Charlotte.
No.
None of us
I just
agree.
want the correction made that I did not make or make the second
That's fair
motion.
enough.
Back in August of that 11 and not last week.
Okay.
Well, I think they can correct it, and let's move on.
Yeah.
We got a lot of
It's a
items.
done
Let's
deal.
go.
Yeah, I think we can beat this horse
Yeah.
forever.
Okay, now we're going back to item 14. Mr. Wardlaw has asked that we pull this. I would like to discuss it. I think it's pertinent. I don't know that I'm going to vote for it, but I would like to discuss it and have an opportunity. And I need the rest of the council. Fleming, do you want to talk about it?
I want to hear what he's going to say about it.
Mr. Marty?
Hear it.
Johnny?
I'd like to hear it.
That's 4. Let's go. Number 14 is discussion and possible action, including but not limited to awarding bid WU 0813 Hickory Wellfield Expansion, Package Number 1 to Allsay Incorporated, Houston, Texas, for the construction of 5, 6, or 7 wells. Bid amounts ranging from $6,423,730,000 for 5 wells to $8,729,000 for 7 wells, authorizing staff to negotiate a contract in substantially the attached form and authorizing the city manager to execute said contract and any related documents. Mr. Dixon.
Okay, we're back to my. Okay, we did pretty good. All right, as Mayor Morrison just read, this is discussion and possible action for the award of the expansion of the well fields. Right now, we have 9 existing wells on the Hickory, and this proposal that we have bid out, attached you'll see a map on the screen. The base bid there is located on those with the 2 alternates that were bid. As I stated earlier, the 9 wells that we have are capable of delivering 6 million gallons a day. If the drought does persist and continues, we are, well, there's not many guarantees in life, but I guarantee you we're going to run out of water if this keeps on and we don't have anything else. The base bid is for the 5. There's alternative 1, which is well number 16, alternative 2, which is well number 22. It's also important to note, and you may not can see it real well on the screen, but these yellow circles with on the ground are kind of the location of the wells, and those little red boxes are nesting areas and areas that assessment have shown the presence of black-capped vireo, our friendly little bird up there that's an endangered species. Kind of the way we have this laid out right now, and like I say, and I wish there was some other way, but this has been a push since this thing started. Right now, the nesting season ends mid-September. If we can get this awarded, we can possibly get the drillers on site and start this process shortly thereafter in the September timeframe. The base bid is 365 days for substantial completion, and then another 60 days after that if we drill 6, another 60 after that if we drill 7 wells. I've taken this proposal to the Water Advisory Board, and on this proposal we are recommending that we drill 6, which is a base bid, and add alternate 1. The reason 1 was chosen is because also in part of this bid is the improvements that will be necessary after the wells are completed, which is all the piping and the roads and the power transmission to these sites to get it back to the distribution system that's already in place. And well number 16 fits in with this real well because we're going to be piping from well 20 to well 12. So this is the most likely scenario. I want to go over, whoops. Well, I seem to be missing a slide, but let me just go over it for you.
Ricky, I think you have it in one of the other PowerPoints. You had 2 of them that were submitted, so I saw the one with the values on it.
Well, again, I can find it.
There was 2 of them that were submitted.
There's a new wells right there.
There you go.
Let's try this one.
Okay, that looks better.
Kind of give you an update of where we're at on the budget. To date, we have spent 57.5 million, give or take. Committed on the projects is the remainder of the funds on the contracts that we now have in place for the engineering booster pump station, the wellfield pipe, the 30-inch transmission project in Sherryland. If you add on to that, the award of the groundwater treatment facility as was awarded at the last council meeting, we're at 103,901. If we select the base bid of the 5 wells and additional add alternate 1, that's a total of $7,571,000. When we estimated this in the beginning, we had estimated the base bid of 5 at $7.5 million. So this gets us our base and 1 additional well. It's important to note that at 13 wells, we're still right in that 9 million gallons a day number that we do. If we do these 15 wells that we're recommending, that gives us a couple extras. If something happens, we don't know. We're just trying to build in some comfort that we know if worse comes to worse, 9 million gallons a day will not be pretty in San Angelo, but we think we can get by. That's kind of the winter average. We won't be doing any activities outside or watering or washing or any of those things, but we think we'll just have something to drink for a limited time frame. If we have to go to 9, we can do that for about 5 years, and we'll use up all our banked water, but maybe during that 5 years, the good Lord will bless us with some rain, or we can come up with some other alternatives. So if we do that, we still have one other project that's out on the ground, or will be shortly. We get a little further down and we start drilling wells and kind of know what we're up against. We have this $6.9 million estimate to equip 5 of those wells. Depending on bids come back, maybe we can equip the 6th one too. We don't have to, that'll give us another backup. If something happens to a well, we have to go down. That gives us some options. So estimated total at the wells, drill these 6 and equip 5 is a little over $14 million, and basically that gets us to $118,373,000 and some change. We got about $1.6 million left in the project with the $120 million that we have borrowed from the Texas Water Development Board. Out of this money that's left, we still have some right-of-ways, easement, construction activities, damages to the Ford Ranch, according to our water conveyance documents that we have with them. We're also going to be, if y'all so choose to award these wells today, and we start in September, we're going to be right in the middle of their hunting season. And it's a big deal in West Texas, as everybody knows. So we're not sure what that's going to boil down to, but I have a letter in to that trust to see what impairment we're going to have on their ranching activities. So,
Ricky, the initial $120 million was earmarked for 6 million gallons per day.
That's correct.
And then again, we had bids that came in much lower than we had anticipated, so we had some savings there, which allowed us to go ahead and address a possible 9 million gallons per day then.
That's correct.
Still bring us within budget.
We've been very fortunate in the bids that we've received that we can go above and beyond the 6 million to 9 million a day.
Charlotte's first.
Okay.
Rodney.
Ricky, can you tell me of the 9 wells that we currently have out there, how many gallons per minute as each one of them tested out to be?
No, I can't, but I have Mr. Seifert with LBG Guyton that's here with us today that can address some of those concerns and answer some of those questions, if you would allow me to bring him up.
Okay, we don't know how many gallons per minute that each well
Well,
pumps?
yeah, we have that information back from 1980, then when they were tested at 500 and over 500 gallons a minute. We have information on 2 of the wells in 2010 that were pumped at 500, and I think one of them was a little over 600 gallons a minute. But we have not got all the pumps installed and done the 36-hour pumps test as required by the TCEQ.
So only 2 wells out of the 9 have been tested?
Recently, yes, ma'am. John, would you like to address that?
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me. I'm John Cipher with LBG Guyton Associates. We're groundwater hydrologists and engineers. We are working as a subconsultant to Corolla in this effort, and this type of work is what we do every day. Okay, in terms of the wells, all of the wells were tested when they were constructed in either between 1971 and 1975. They were pumped for at least 24 hours, a standard test. Then there were 6 of the wells that were retested in 1980, and one of those wells was pumped for 14 days. All of those pumpings were at greater than 500 gallons a minute. Then, as somewhat of a check of the work that was done in 1980, if we had the map up, we selected well 6 on the very east side, well 9 on the very west side, and pumped each one of those, one at 500 gallons per minute, the other one at 600 gallons per minute. The performance of those wells in 2010 was just as good or a little better than it was in 1980. So they're capable of 500 gallons per minute for each one of the wells. They can be equipped with 500 gallon per minute pumps and provide water at those rates.
You're asking us to spend $8 million on wells that have been out there for 40 years and not tested, all of them tested, that we know for sure that those are going to produce, because I'm not real crazy about spending more money for more wells if the ones we've got are not going to produce and you don't even have the test on them.
Well, we have the tests on them. We have the tests from 1971 to 1975 when they were new and they ran tests. We have the tests from 1980 when 6 of the wells were retested, and like I say, one was tested for 14 days, pumped for 14 days straight, and the others were pumped each for 24 hours. And then that was repeated on wells 6 and 9 in 2010 with pumping at 500 GPM and at 600 GPM.
What's the significance of testing those 2 wells? Why those 2 wells?
The test of those 2 wells, one was for water quality, just to recheck the water quality in the well field, radiological constituents, general mineral constituents. And so we tried to span the well field from the east side to the west side and selected those wells. And so they were tested. And then there was also somewhat of a recheck of some of the testing that was done in 1980 and to see if there had been any change, and there wasn't any change noted. I mean, the aquifer was just as productive. We got the same transmissivity results, which is a measure of an aquifer's ability to transmit water. Those same results, the performance of the wells in terms of drawdown were the same or a little less than what was measured in 1980.
Where was the water pumped?
Well, this water was pumped, and it was, when they were originally tested in 1980, it was pumped and discharged to the ground and percolated into the ground. For the test in 2010, the same thing was done.
Rodney?
I've got a totally different question for Ricky. Is what is the capacity of that pipeline a day? And with our wells that we have in place now that we're going to use, how full will that place them without doing these wells?
Well, I think full is maybe not the right term, but I know where you're coming from. It's well capable of over 10.7 million gallons a day, because that's the maximum that we can produce off of that well field, and it was sized accordingly. For if we drill on, you see all these little blips on this deal, all of these are wells. There's 22. If we drill them all, pump them all 500 gallons a minute, the 30-inch transmission main will handle it.
It will?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Don?
One of my concerns is the filtration process. So we can get the water here, can we take the radioactive isotopes out of it? Can we take the iron out of it? Can we get it to where it's good to go through our system?
Yes, sir.
What's the capability or the capacity of our filtration system?
Right now, with what's awarded is, I think it's a little over 8 million gallons a day right now. And there is additional space in the facility to add additional trains to get to the full capacity of the well field.
Ricky, one last question. Sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
This has been asked of me before, and some people have said that why don't we use this money for some other things? This money cannot be used for other things, can it?
No, sir. It's for the
has to
Hickory
be
project
only.
specific.
Okay, I want to make
Nothing
that
else.
clear.
Thank you.
Any other council? Johnny?
Are we looking for a motion for this?
Please.
I'm to the point where I am, let me ask a quick question first before I make the motion, but the $120 million loan, are we already making payments on it, or where are we on that?
That's correct.
We are.
And we will make those for the next 20 years.
That started right after it was awarded, or when did we start making payments on it?
Last year.
Last year.
Was the first payment.
Okay. Well.
One question, Ricky, if I may.
Okay.
What if we just drilled 3 additional wells instead of 6? Would there be a real savings? Would it be half of that if we went 3 instead of 6? And I understand the need for a backup, but I don't want to get greedy with this either.
Well, it all comes down, I don't know that there would be a significant savings. I can't answer that question. You know, they're coming here, they're mobilizing, we know there's going to be some savings. So there should be some, but we get into a quantity issue. You know, that's the main thing that I'm dealing with. I'm still looking at, and I have to, worst case scenario, 6 million gallons. So.
I do want to add, of course, that we did start, of course, as far as the debt service payments on that. Even if we don't drill these wells at this point, we are going to continue the same level of debt service payment for the next 18 years, and maybe at the tail end is when we end up seeing those savings as far as years 19 and 20.
Anything that's left is reversed, comes off the tail end, going the
So
other
regardless,
direction.
we'll have the same payment for the next.
So we may pay 18 instead of 20 years.
Charlotte?
How much more money is it going to cost to get those other 7 wells cleaned, brushed, fixed, and tested?
We have completed all of the requirements that the TCU given us right now, except for the 36-hour pump test and the water quality analysis that they are requiring, that is required on if it's a well that's 40 years old, or if it's one of these that we're going to drill in the future. We're setting the pumps right now and running the electrical, and that has to be done before we can do the 36-hour pump test. We have cleaned and re-cleaned casings and wells on that well field. We've done everything that we could do, that anybody that could recommend, we've done it to try to clean them. And
Tests haven't been done, sent to TCEQ, test results?
they're all going to be submitted in one package. We've re-videoed with all the narratives, and all of that is submitted when the 36-hour pump test and the water quality data goes with it.
Public comment? I know the public's got something to say. This is your opportunity.
I had a presentation here all ready to go, but there was one thing I didn't realize, that they had to filter the iron out first before they put it in. Okay, so that kind of mutes that. I've got some questions. Basically, what is the cost, item for item? See, us in the general public here, we don't know. And before San Angelo commits to pay 1 more cent on this Hickory water deal, we need some answers. Us general public guys, or taxpayers that's paying all of this. And I'd like to know what the cost is per acre, per 1,000 gallon. what it's going to cost us to coming all the way from the Hickory Field to my spigot. What is it? We just don't know because everybody's been kind of keeping this a secret from us, general public people. Another thing I've got is, okay, we have a judgment that was a 1997 judgment that restricts the amount of water we're allowed to take out of the Hickory. Now, if they have all 9 wells currently we have now, if they can pump at 500 gallons a minute, which must be tested at 750 gallons a minute per the TEQ regulations, okay, if they pump all 9 at 500 gallons a minute within less than 4 years, we are going to eat up our banked water. And once we do that, we're going to have to reduce the amount of water we can pump. Otherwise, we're going to violate this 1997 judgment. So my question is, why should we drill more wells when we're not allowed to pump it to San Angelo? To me, it just doesn't make sense to spend the money. I'm sorry, and that's basically all I have to say on it.
Thank you, Terry. Can you give us an answer on that, Mr. Dixon?
Yes, I can. Let's start with, we have to pump it at a 750 gallon a minute rate. Same judgment that he talked about, Hickory Underground Water District restricts us to 500 gallons per minute. The TCQ understands that and are okay with it. So we can't pump at 750, we can only pump at 500. If we pump the existing 9 wells, 6 million gallons a day, all we can get out of them, we are good till 2026. We still have 850 acre feet of banked water. At that point, our allotted acre feet goes up to 10,000 acre feet. So then we can go to 9 million gallons. And then finally in 2036, go to 10.7 million gallons a day with another allotment that goes to 12,000 acre feet. Right now we're at 2,750 acre feet allowable water, and we can bank all of that we don't use. That changes in 2021 to 5,000 acre feet a year. And we can still, we don't get to bank any water when we get to the maximum in 2036 of 12,000 acre feet a year. Our banking privileges are gone. We can't bank any more water after that. So I think that answers that question. I'm sorry, Mr. Campbell, what was the other question? How much it costs per 1,000?
Yeah, how much is the water coming from the Hickory? Okay, after it's going through all of the process, removing the iron, removing the radium, and putting it through the process, what is the total cost of water from the Hickory to my spigot at my house?
I don't, I'm going to have to go back from a previous council presentation that we discussed this. I know the long-term service agreement with WRT is 59 cents a 1,000. That takes care of the radium removal. If you add in the capital and Michael, can you help me what that number was? If you
told us
capital and everything, 5-something.
529 is what you told us.
529, I think, is what was previously spoken. But that, I mean, I need to correct that right now. I was working off of a capital debt service payment of $8.3 million, and that is actually $6.85 million, I believe. So that's going to come down a little bit, but I don't have that right in front of me, what that is.
Working from the other way around the tree, Mr. Campbell, when we passed a rate increase to fund the Hickory project and its estimated operational cost, that number was a debt service component and a operational component. The operational component provided by Mr. Wilde at that time was $2 million per year. And so the total, until that operational element changes, we have built into the rates the $6.85 billion associated with debt service, plus the $2 million per year for operation, which is pumping and treatment primarily,
O&M.
maintenance and that kind of thing, operational expenses. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, is that going to stay every month? I'm not sure I understand the question. You're already.
Hey, Terry,
you're already-
Terry, come to the microphone, please, just so we can record all this, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good point.
No, my question was because I remember my bill all of a sudden went up for $14, and my question was, is that $14 going to stay there forever until we pay off the debt, the $120 million that we currently have accrued for this project? And you said I thought we were paying like $8.5 million a year. Is it 7 point something instead now? Million a year we're
For
paying
debt
toward
service?
the debt service?
The debt service portion is approximately $6.85 million.
6.85, okay.
Approximately $1.5 million of that is contributed by the Development Corporation.
Okay.
So the net amount that the ratepayers pay is $5.3 million and change, plus the operational expense, estimated operational expense of $2 million, which would bring us to $7.3 million and change that the ratepayers pay through their water bill, plus $1.5 million, which comes from the Development Corporation, which many of those ratepayers pay through sales tax.
Through sales tax. Okay, so how much per 1,000 gallons wholesale is the water costing us here by the time it gets through and it gets put into our distribution system to all of us customers out here and us taxpayers?
Well, that's a great question. I'm going to ask Ricky to start around the other way around the tree to answer that question, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you.
I can't give you an answer for that right now until I refigure the debt service payment. It was like 529, I think is what it was, is 8.3 million. So I'm gonna have to back some of that out, but I'll be glad to provide that.
Certainly, one of the things that we've talked about is the capacity of the project affects the per thousand amount. So when you take the significant hurdles of the treatment plant and the pipeline and put those behind you, then you have one cost per thousand at 6 million gallons per day. When you take the marginal cost of those wells and expand the capacity to 9 million gallons per day, the cost of that extra 3 million on a per thousand basis is going to be dramatically lower than the cost of that first 6 million, because the cost of the first 6 million includes the hurdles of the pipeline, the storage tank, and the treatment capacity. And so the marginal cost of the additional 3 million gallons per day is going to be lower on a per thousand basis or any per unit basis than it will be for that first 6 million. I think that's intuitive, but probably appropriate
Ricky?
to say.
Charlotte has another question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry for the inquisition, but I do need to know. I asked a question a while ago about how much more money it was going to take to repair the 7 wells that needed to be done, and you said y'all had already done all of that. You'd brushed and cleaned. What I need to be more specific. Have we made all of the repairs that was required by TCEQ on all of those wells that they required in February 2013?
The only ones that I'm aware of, and John was there for the video, and so I might have to get some clarification. I think there was some, in the video, you know, as best you can be at 2,000 feet, there were some holes denoted extremely deep, and I don't have that in front of me, so I'm not real sure how deep they were, but that may be impossible to repair just because of the pressure that you're dealing with at that depth.
Did you just say making it impossible to repair?
That's my understanding, yes, ma'am. The pressures that you're dealing with at that deep, You know, you can swedge a repair in a hole in a casing up closer, but the deeper you go, the more pressure is developed.
And TCQ was requesting new video of the repairs made. Has that been sent to them?
That it will be included in the final package, yes, ma'am. But all of those videos have been completed.
I just feel better about approving more wells if we had that package completed before we committed more money.
Don?
Ricky, I'm a little concerned, I guess, about our treatment on getting the radium out.
Okay.
So we're at 59 cents a thousand, no matter how many thousand we send down the pipeline.
That's correct.
And we have a contract with WRT for how long for that,
It's
or?
a 10-year contract.
Okay. Have they ever done a project this large, this many gallons?
There, and I don't have, yeah, I do. Hang on.
You want me to go get you something? What do you want?
Guess we could say a little prayer for some rain.
Well, I lost one.
He'll be right back. Just hold on one moment.
I apologize, I got too many folders today.
And I guess, you know, to verbalize my biggest concern, Ricky, is, you know, if we increase our volume, make sure that we've got a good contract to where once we get into this stuff, since they are the only ones that can do that all of a sudden they don't say, whoa, we're doing 75 cents now.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find that part. In their proposal, they sent a list of 100 different locations where they do this, and some of them were pretty large. They were kind of a combined deal on individual wells, but when you look at the total gallons that they're treating, that it was above what we're looking at. And I don't have it with me, but I can be sure and get it to you, Don.
Okay.
For sure.
But you've got a written contract that says for 10 years we're at 59 cents, and you feel comfortable
Yeah, there's a
with that?
minimum charge, I think, on that contract of $90,000 a year plus 59 cents a thousand, and it's per however many thousand. Another thing I just come across, you know, there's been discussions of fires and explosions and whatever, that I have the material safety data sheets for this media that Z88 that WRT provides, that it's non-flammable, non-explosive, whether it's loaded or dry or wet or whatever. So, but I'll get you that information, Don. I can't find it in all of this stuff right now.
That's fine. Like I said, my main concern is, you know, with us increasing, I just didn't want them to up the ante, and want to make sure that we can take the radium out of more capacity
Right.
than
Yeah, I
what
think
we
we're fine.
originally talked about.
Johnny?
Yes, sir. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, and the reason I'm making it is, you know, when I hear stories of even our neighbors to our west, like the Barnharts out there that ran out of water a while back, that's the last thing I want for our youth. Because, you know, in 2036, I figured I'd be like 89 years old, and I'd be pretty much gone. But, you know, some of these younger folks that are coming up behind us, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to award this bid for the from 5 wells to 7 wells, if I'm saying it right, in item 14, to the 8.729 million. I'm saying that wrong.
Our recommendation is for the base bid of 5 and add alternate 1 for the 7,500,000 and whatever
That's
the change
exactly
was.
what I meant to say. For item number 14, make a motion.
You'll be drinking Metamucil at 89.
Yes.
Do I have a second? We've got a motion.
I'll second it.
Is there any other public comment?
Are we done with public comment?
No, sir. Your turn.
Yes, sir.
Got a couple questions.
State your name, please. for the
Richard D.
record.
Robles, San Angelo, Texas. Are there any other users on the Hickory Aquifer that we know about or are planned? And since we had all this problem with our allotment to begin with, do they have priority? Does anybody have priority on these allotments? Can we take this one at a time, or do you want all the questions?
Ricky, how do you want to handle them, sir?
I'm gonna let John take this one. He's more familiar with the permit holders and the other people that are on this, so bear with us.
All right, sir.
Yes, sir. There are other permit holders for water from the Hickory Aquifer in Mason and McCullough counties. Most of them are irrigators. They use that water for peanut irrigation. The town of Brady obviously has a permit. Towns to the south have permits also. So yes, there are other permit holders for that water. But pumping is not nearly as high today as it was 15 years ago because of the cessation of the federal peanut program, and therefore that usage is way down.
Also, I might add, in talking with the Hickory Underground Water Conservation District, our judgment that was spoke of later, our stuff is set. I mean, they know, they understand. It's been through the courts. We're good on ours.
Ricky,
question, Mr.
Ricky, if I may add to his question, that was a good question, sir. But those other permitters, they don't tap into our line. Is that correct?
No, we cannot sell this water to anybody
Okay.
else. It's only
They've
for
got
the
their
use of
own-
the citizens of San Angelo. It's correct. We're just got holes up there.
Okay.
Next question, sir.
The second part of that question was, do they have priority?
I can't answer that question. I just know that ours is set, so I don't know the priority dates on any of those permits.
Okay, the second, what is the historical level of the aquifer? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? Based on, we've had these wells since 1970, and I guess all this is including possible recharge rates. If everybody's in a drought, it's not going to recharge either. Do we know that information?
You might as well stay up there, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Well, the first question, has the water level declined in the aquifer? And water levels have been measured in these wells in the Hickory well fields since about 1972, 73, 74. And that water level has declined about 20 or 30 feet since that time, realizing the static water level is about 460 or 70 feet below land surface, and the aquifer that's being tapped is down at about 2,200 feet. So there's very significant large artesian pressure with the water level only 476 feet below land surface and the aquifer much deeper. So there's been I'd call it a small decline, 20 or 30 feet in the last approximately 40 years. And those water levels are measured periodically by the Hickory Underground Water Conservation District, as they do for many other wells within the district. Recharge to the aquifer. It's an aquifer that's under study in that regard, but the recharge occurs more to the east than in this immediate area. This well field is in what's called the down dip part, where it's much deeper, but the recharge does occur in that other area. Then the water moves slowly through the aquifer to areas of pumping, and those areas of pumping have been the peanut farming area, in the Brady area, not so much in this area because there hasn't been pumping. So the natural flow rate is very slow.
Doesn't this recharge in the sand area out around Fredonia and the San Saba County area?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And east of there, where the Hickory is at land surface, around what's called the Llano uplift.
Yes, sir. Another question, Mr. Robles?
Okay. If the level goes down, for whatever reason, maybe somebody decides that maybe peanuts weren't the good deal, but there's a better deal to do something else, and everybody starts pumping like crazy, using their allotments. If the level goes down, can the city of San Angelo be cut off?
From our judgments through the court that I've read, I don't believe so. I don't. I don't think so. John?
Well, and the other thing, that's a good question. Part of that is, we talked about water levels measured in 1971 to now, and 20 or 30 feet of decline, maybe going from 475 to 505 feet. During that time period, there was the significant irrigation to the east and the southeast, and these water levels really didn't show an effect from that irrigation. So even if it were to resume, there would still be water here that could be pumped. So that existed. The other thing that happened when that pumping declined significantly, and it was in the range of 30,000 acre feet a year, the water levels didn't rise in this well field area, which shows that it's not, close. It's far enough away where it wasn't being affected by that, and therefore this pumping wouldn't affect them when this pumping starts either.
John, let me ask you a quick question, Mr. Mayor, if I may, while you're up there. On his question of priority, are there any other permitters with 36-inch water lines coming out of that Hickory?
No, sir. And they issue the permits, and the permits are issued not so much on a priority first in time, first in line, but what happens if that ever occurs in other districts, if there has to be any cutback, it's all on an equal basis. You don't get cut back if it's cut back 4%. Then normally everyone takes 4%. It's not you're last, so you have to be cut back significantly more than anybody else. But this agreement is, to my knowledge, solid, that the city has.
Okay. There's a lot of reports on the Hickory. Are there any dissenting reports that say that this well field is not going to last till 2036? Do we have a good quote unquote guarantee that this well is going to be, these wells can supply water for 10 years, 15 years, 20? Can somebody give us a guesstimate that is correct before we drill even more wells?
There haven't been dissenting reports on the viability of the Hickory as an aquifer. The other thing I would say is that in these other areas that we talked about where they pumped large quantities for irrigation, that was pumped for decades. The aquifer continued to support that amount of pumping. There's no indication that where this well field is that the conditions are any different. You know, there were studies done in the 70s and 80s about the longevity of this supply, and they were positive. We haven't seen anything since then to change our opinion of the longevity of the well field.
Mr. Roberts, let's get permission from the
One-
council,
one
because
la-
normally we get 5 minutes.
Okay.
And you've already
well-
had more than that.
Yeah, but I only.
Council,
One more question?
let's
Just one
get
quick one.
approval from the council. Council, is it all right for him to keep with the questions? Una mas.
Okay.
Una mas.
Is there a backup plan if the project is not approved by the TCEQ?
We have no indications that, that we've dealt with or talked to the TCEQ that they would not approve this project. So I can't, I can't guarantee it. I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Any further comment from the public? Now's your time to speak. If you have a question, please come forward. Any further comment from the council?
Rick?
Yes, sir.
I thought you were through. No. What depth are we drawing from? Or are we planning to draw from?
Do you know what the depth of those pumps were?
I mean,
It's
roughly.
a, it's a range, 500 or 600.
Well, I mean, the aquifer's down at 2,200 to 3,000 feet, and that's where the permeable hickory sandstone is located. That's where the water comes from. It flows laterally toward the well, then it goes up the well bore when the pump up here is operating, and excuse me, the production is down at 2,200 to 3,000 feet, and it varies through the well field. It's a thick sequence of about 300 feet of sandstone. Then the water will flow up the cemented well casing to where a pump will be set at a depth of about 700 feet, 750 feet, to allow for future conditions, and then it will pump water now from a depth of about 600 feet back to land surface, into the pipeline, to the pump station, and then to the city.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Educate me. From the material that I've read, we've got some wells that are at 400 feet, some that are at 3,700. So if you just said 750 feet, does that knock out the wells that I have that are not that deep?
You mean, you've been provided some information that says that the hickory wells that'll provide water are 400 feet deep?
There's one that I had read that was 450 foot, and you just said that we would pump at 700. So do I have to go in and drill back down?
Well, no, maybe that was some information where because 450 feet is close to the static water level that has been measured in a number of the wells. So maybe that was the static water level was 450 feet, because the depths of all the wells, the current wells are in the 2,200 to 2,400 foot depth level.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Anyone else? All right, we have a motion on the floor that we approve the additional wells. The motion has been seconded, and I guess it's now time to call for the vote. All of those in favor, say aye.
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 Nay. Nays or opposed?
Nay.
No.
Okay, let's see a show of hands for those that's in favor. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Nays. Motion passes 4-3 for the new wells. It is 11:53, council. Do you want to go take lunch and get these executive items out of the way and come back, or do you want to go a little further? Go to lunch? Okay, we're going to go to lunch then. We've got 3 executive items which I will read, and after we read these things, we'll talk about a minute and see about how long it's going to take, and then we'll give you a time at which we will be back, because we've got many items left. Executive session under the Division of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government Chapter 551, Open Meeting Subchapter D. Exceptions to requirements that meetings be open. Section 551071, to consult with attorney on pending or contemplated litigation or a settlement offer regarding property damage, claim number GO12154. Number 2 item, Section 551072, to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property regarding groundwater supply options for the city, including Val Verde groundwater, business and industrial park property, and Lake Nesworthy property. Number 3, Section 551074A1, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of the city manager. And I would just say that this is going to take an hour and a half, because I think we'll probably talk 30 minutes on each one. Does anybody disagree? You think it'll take longer? How about if we say then we will be back in open session at 2 o'clock? Does everybody agree with that? We will be back in open session at 2 o'clock. If we have not completed our executive, after we finish the rest of the items, we will go back into executive and finish then. We are now closing the meeting out. It's 11:55 to go to executive.